European democracy. It's composed of 705 representatives of 27 member states, of which 6 are from Luxembourg, and I am one of those. I'm sitting with the Liberal Democrats, Renew Europe. And well, for you maybe to have an idea, we are kind of the kingmakers in the European Parliament, because the other groups need us to have a majority. So the European Parliament is the only EU institution that is directly elected by the EU citizens. And so we are the voices of the citizens. We are the voice of the European society. We should be, but we are not. Because unfortunately the European Parliament does not reflect the reality of the European society. We have improved when it comes to the gender balance. We are about 40% of female MEPs, as we are called, members of the European Parliament, MEPs, 40%, which is great. But the first day I entered the plenary in Strasbourg, I was a bit struck because, yes, African descents are not really represented there. It should be 10%, so 10% out of 705 should be like more than 50, I would say, but we are 7. So 1 joined, so from 6 to 7, because there are changes during the mandate, and then just right now also joined us 1 African descent MEP from Portugal. And I have to name it. So I was the first Cape-Verdean descent in the European Parliament, and now we are 2 because Annabella joined us. So we are celebrating, although we are from different political groups, we are celebrating that we have 2 Cape-Verdean descents in the European Parliament. So there we have really to work on, so that the Parliament is more representative and fairly represented. So we need more women in politics, in European politics, and of course also more people from a minority background, migration, which have a migration background in the European Parliament, because we make also laws for these people. And so their starting point is often another. If you're a child from immigrants, often you have, and we don't talk now about expats as such, but of economic migrants, for example, like my parents were, then you have a different starting point from others. And therefore it's important. And we talked about more representation and how to get youth better in, for example, STEM. This is also important then to fight against discrimination in education. Because if you have the name Gonçalves Semedo, it's a bit, you're seen already different than someone who is called Schmidt or Müller in Luxembourg, for example. And we have, for example, in Luxembourg, the structural discrimination that we speak 3 languages, yes, but in school, first it's German, so all the rather francophone, they have a disadvantage because everything is in German until 3 years before you end high school. So only to get there, you face more barriers depending also from where your parents come. So these things we should fight, and we also do in the European Parliament with initiative reports, for example, on the role of culture, education, media and sports in the fight against racism, against discrimination. So all these sectors, they play a crucial role in more equality and more equal chances and opportunities for people. We do not just talk about women and people with migrant background and African descent, but of course also of people with disabilities. You have disabilities you see immediately, but If you look at me, do you see that I am disabled? No. So the topic of non-visible disabilities are important. I am visually impaired. Yes, I wear glasses, but due to a genetic defect that attacked my eye nerve, I only see 35%. So I see, but like I really have to look very long time, I think, and you will say, what is she doing there? Why is she staring at me like that? In order to detect the different features of your face, and also so to read something out is quite difficult for me, so it means to adapt. And also for these people, you have to be the voice in the European Parliament, and I'm very proud. I'm co-chair of the Disability Intergroup, the biggest intergroup in the European Parliament, representing 120 million people in the European Union. These are a lot that live with a disability, their families, their friends, their work colleagues.
Not to mention all of the psychosocial categories of disability.
Yes, so this is also a group that needs to be represented. Because the needs and the demands are different, are slightly different, but it makes sometimes a huge difference in the end. And so to work on a more inclusive, more diverse European Union, that's what I was doing now for the past 5 years, and I hope, of course, for the next 5 years. But how can we then fix this lack of representation in the European Parliament, for example, and in the EU institutions, which make 80% of the national laws in the end? People are not very aware of that, but what is decided in Brussels and in Strasbourg is 80% of the national laws. So it's important how the European Parliament is composed, and it should represent. So what I, of course, do and try to do permanently is to encourage the European youth, which we do with Renew. 2022 was the European Year of Youth, with many thousands of events, and also my group, Renew Europe, invited many groups of young people to contribute, to give their input, their criticism, and their questions to the European Union and their representatives, what they can do for them. And so one of the results is the Renew Europe manifesto. So also the youth had a real voice in our political group. And also in Luxembourg we have a youth parliament, which is important that also the youth contributes to their own future. And one important aspect, and there we go more global than only the EU, is the diaspora. If you talk about minorities here, it can be minorities within a country, but also minorities coming from, immigrating from other countries, like many Cape Verdeans did. And so I was now on an official mission to the Cape Verdean Islands to meet authorities, but also NGOs and associations. And one important thing is that the diaspora, which is eligible to vote, should vote. Because many Cape Verdeans, I take that country now, the country where my parents come from, and I'm a descendant of, I take that as an example. There are 500 Cape Verdeans in Cabo Verde, but 1.5 million across the world. So 3 times. And so it's important that if they, for example, now in my case, they live in the European Union and often have a European nationality, maybe French, Dutch, Luxembourgish, Portuguese, that the diaspora also, because they contribute to our member states' wealth. I mean, what would Luxembourg be without the French, the German, the Belgian, the Portuguese, and the Cape Verdeans, not to forget the Italians and the Spanish, and all these others. So Luxembourg's wealth was founded on immigrants that contribute largely to Luxembourg's wealth so that it's the richest country in the EU. And so all these people that are in the European Union should also contribute to be represented. So therefore, if you know people that live in the EU that could go and vote, they should register. I think it's until the 15th, so until Monday, they should register and then make a wise choice, because we have to prevent that the right wing take over 80% of our laws on the national level. So very important is to get all people in, and what you said rightly, Yvonne, I can just co-sign, as we call that in the European Parliament, I can just co-sign that. I mean, together we are stronger, and if you care, then get involved somehow in your neighborhood, in associations, or get involved in politics, fight for what you know, what you want to be improved, what you think is unfair, and shape opportunities, create opportunities for others. And that's what we in the European Parliament try to do. And I was enjoying doing that the past 5 years. So I hope that also that there are much more younger MEPs as well in the European Parliament, is like, encouraging, being a role model to say, you can, and you should if you want to. If you care, then please dare go into politics, get involved, and together, there were so many crises: the financial crisis, migration crisis, then we had the COVID crisis, the pandemic. We cannot manage that alone. Yes. Not only the European Union alone, no. It's whole Europe, it's the whole globe, the whole continent should work together. And therefore I'm happy to be here, to meet also people from the United Nations, to exchange and to see the different perspectives, maybe, how to tackle certain problems, and how to, go for challenges that we have. And so I'm looking forward to the UN Summit of the Future, to see what are the next steps we will do together. That's what I want. Merci.
Thank you so much, Monica. Thank you so much for that.